Annyeong, everybody. Here I am again. I'm Jude, one of the hosts of Hallyu, the longest running K-pop show in Cebu that airs every Sunday, 2 to 4 in the afternoon on Magic 92.3. And you know what? Kingdom just dropped their latest song, Black Crown, their third comeback, which is History of Kingdom Part 3, Ivan, also happened a few days ago. And you know what? The album covers always piquing our interest. That's why I always kind of drag my good friend, assistant professor of the University of the Philippines Department of Fine Arts, Jose Chong Ardivilla, who's also a Fulbright Shed scholar, to talk to us about the album art because I can't do much about it. Hey, Chong, welcome back to How You Ill.
Hey, June. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for giving us time. There's no other person I can talk to who knows so much about visual art and who can, put more color into the K-pop music that we all enjoy.
I try.
I try. Yeah, you're the best person. So, Chong, like I mentioned, Kingdom came up with their third album or their third comeback, and it's called History of Kingdom Part 3, Ivan. And when I showed you the album cover, it looks like an eagle to me.
Yeah.
Okay. What can you say about it? Because today we're going to dissect the album cover and see its relevance and perhaps, relate it to history.
Well, Ivan is one of the more popular names for tsars in Russia.
Oh,
And that's why when I asked you which Ivan is this, and you were befuddled, like there are many. Yes, there are many Ivans, but there's one great Ivan. I think he's the very first Tsar or Caesar in Imperial Russia. So that would be Ivan or Ivan the Terrible. And it's interesting that I would assume that they chose Ivan the Terrible because he's the most famous of all the Ivans. And also, he's the most formidable. There was a mistranslation, they think, regarding the Terrible because they thought Ivan the Terrible is purely tyrannical, although he was. But a lot of scholars think it's more of Ivan the Formidable.
oh, wow. That makes a whole
Mhm.
lot of difference.
Yes, it does. And for the eagle, although Ivan belongs to a different family, Ivan the Terrible, the eagle is it a double-headed eagle?
I think it is a double-headed eagle as I'm looking at the album cover right now.
So if it's a double-headed eagle, that would be part of the symbols of the very last Tsar of Russia, Tsar Nicholas of the Romanovs, one of the most powerful families, and they were murdered 100 years ago by the well, the communists when they overran Russia.
How relevant? I mean, what kind of contribution has the Romanovs given to Russia, Chong?
Well, the
And
Romanovs are amongst the wealthiest families in royal families in Europe. And they were very much well connected to, let's say, the royal family of Greece, the royal family of England, or other European royal families. They were very ostentatious in terms of wealth. Russia was, well, it still is very wealthy. That's why I thought it was interesting that this is the third album, the third king, and
Mhm.
it's Russia.
Yes.
And people always forget, or at least, well, some underestimate Russia, but Russia has been very influential for centuries. So, and it was Ivan the Terrible, who was the very first czar. Ergo, this shifted Russia from a medieval location into something more powerful that eventually became an empire. So who rules an empire is not really a king, it's an emperor or a Caesar. So that's why I thought it was interesting that they chose the third king to be Russian.
That's very interesting. That's true. He truly is, because you're also saying that in our previous conversation, you actually used the word reshaped Europe
Yes,
and Asia. That's a
because
big
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Sorry to have interrupted you. Well, Russia literally crosses Europe, or at least brackets Europe and Asia. So even up to now, Russia would have some border disputes with some of our Asian neighbors, particularly Japan. And in Europe right now, Russia is being seen as um, something like a powerful interlocutor, or by the Western Europeans. So Russia has been very, very present, even despite of it having all these political upheavals. Russia is still very much powerful up to this very day,
And it's
and it's
interesting.
all because of Ivan.
I know it's very interesting how they chose Ivan among the, as you mentioned, many other Ivans in history, Chong. And
Mhm.
going back to the K-pop group, they're building it up. First it was Arthur, then it's Chiwoo, now
Mhm.
it's Ivan. There's a story that they're actually weaving right now. And interesting, in our previous conversation, you said, you know, they're not perfect. The kings aren't perfect, but there are legacies that they've actually left behind. So, as you mentioned, how Ivan has reshaped and has continued to make Russia influential is one of his legacies.
That's one of his legacies, is to form a very mighty Russia. So and yeah, like there was he authored, or at least sanctioned, laws regarding mobility of people. And we have to remember, these are tens of thousands, or at least millions of people under him. Uh, and there has been a lot of stories about him. It's still being debated up to now, that Ivan the Terrible has had some mental issues, to a point that he killed his own son and
Wow.
his own, I think, pregnant daughter-in-law. And he has been really portrayed as a tyrant. And one of the most beautiful buildings right now in Russia, the Saint Basil or Basil's Cathedral in the Red Square, uh, initially that was started by him, and there's been gossip, okay, in which, after the building was constructed, he instructed the architect to blind himself, because he doesn't want the architect to build more beautiful churches than this.
That is insane.
It's insane, but uh let me just reissue this. These are all gossip. Okay. But
Yes.
it's all part of like some historical text. That's why even in historical text there has been a lot of tweakings. And we even know that right now, looking at the memes being circulated online and certain political personalities. So if you can tweak memes, you can tweak ancient documents.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's a little scary.
it's scary. So it makes me think, it makes one wonder, why would Ivan wanted to have a legacy that would portray him as somebody like tyrannical? Because the issue, and I think this is the answer, because he wanted his enemies to fear him.
Mm.
So because he united Russia, or at least started to make Russia a little bit bigger, he was stepping on all on different toes. And for those toes not to encroach the throne, he really marketed himself as really a terrible person, a terrible but effective person,
Wow.
which comes to mind Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince. Is it better to be loved or to be feared as a leader? And apparently for Ivan, he, he preferred to be feared.
So interesting, Sean. The things you're bringing to the table on, and we're talking about K-pop right now, but it makes us think. It makes us think about history. It makes us reflect, and it gets us so excited, actually, because really, the whole point of this is just we're trying to review the album cover of Kingdom, the K-pop group, right? Um, uh, the all of the kings haven't been revealed yet. This is only the
Yes.
third king, so I wonder what kind of story they're actually going to um, they're going to how the story will unfold once everyone else has been revealed. I mean, it's just so interesting when you think about history, which you're talking about right now, and how Kingdom the Idol group is actually going to um, tell its story. It's wonderful. It's very wonderful.
Yeah, because I think again there are two album covers, one in white and one in I think purple.
Yeah, it looks purple to me.
Yes. So the one in white and gold, that to me struck me the most because Imperial Russia wanted to advocate its own style. It doesn't want to really be totally European. So that's one reason why Europe is wary of Russia. And what Russia did was to develop its own look. And if you take a look at the filigrees or all these squiggly lines, these are all informed by, I think the folk designs of Russians, of
Mm.
the different groups of Russia, and which is integrated into a very European look, but not quite European. And that's why I found that interesting that although this kind of design, I would suspect, did not really exist during Ivan the Terrible's time, but this became the standard for Russia, for Imperial Russia, which is a double-headed eagle and this mark of opulence. And they were very opulent, Joan.
How
Like,
opulent were they?
oh my God, have you heard of the Fabergé eggs?
Oh, yes. Those are
So okay,
beautiful.
those are beautiful. Those are basically eggs that are designed by jewelers that are encased in a lot of precious metals and precious jewels, and that has become like a gift presented to the Tsars and one of the favorites of several Tsarinas as well, the wives of the emperor. So it's quite how do I say this, ostentatious, I've mentioned. Eventually down the line of other tsars, you would have Peter the Great of Russia who modernized Russia, and then you have Catherine the Great who actually solidified the current Russia. And Catherine the Great was the one who collected a lot of artworks. And if you go to present day Russia, like St. Petersburg, etc., you have literally mansions or palaces just for art.
Wow.
So that's one legacy. I mean, coming from a man who was very feared, tyrannical, and then you have this glorious, really royal, imperious Russia.
That's just beautiful,
Yeah.
I think perhaps one of the intentions of choosing Ivan the Great as one of the kings for Kingdom is to actually get the fans to appreciate what Ivan has left in present day Russia, so that we can appreciate the great art that, as you mentioned, that he has left. And it's something to keep people interested, not just in the music of K-pop, but also in the glory that is Russia.
Yeah, and when you mention glory and K-pop, it's also it behooves me to point out that that kings particularly, their job is not just to keep the kingdom safe, but to make it more vital, maybe to expand it.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's
To
why I
conquer
find it
lands, right?
yeah, to conquer land or at least to conquer the hearts and minds of other people. And for this K-pop group to situate themselves as positions of kings, I think that's very important and interesting in a time when people are looking for heroes, I guess.
That's true. And I was chatting with some of their fans. They're called KingMakers, and they were saying some of the theories that have come up, because not all the kings have been revealed yet, but some of the theories that have come up is that there might be, once all the kings would have been revealed, there would be betrayal, because we don't know what story is coming out
Yeah.
after the reveal, but there might be betrayal. There might be the one true king that will unify all of them. So it's so interesting. It's very, very interesting.
See, it's interesting not just because they're just a boy band. It's like a boy band that's like in the middle of a K drama that's very historical. I thought
Oh,
that's pretty
that's
funny and
true.
also
Yeah,
engaging.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You did mention also when we were talking earlier, Chong, before this Zoom call,
Mhm.
the fact that white reminded you about how torturously icy Russia is.
Yes. So purple is a royal color.
Ah,
Okay,
yes,
that,
of
that
course.
goes
Yes, yes.
so the purple let me just first answer that with the purple because the purple is the robe of the emperor in ancient Rome. Red would be
Okay.
for the military.
Ah. This is
So
this is
part
Roman.
of the yeah,
Mm.
because Russia wanted to become the new Rome.
Oh.
So that's why they started calling their emperor Tsar, Caesar, to situate themselves as the new Roman Empire.
How
Now,
interesting.
white, when we were discussing, one of the most torturous winters in the world right now would be in Russia. So, and even as far away as Siberia, that's where usually before, if you if you incur the displeasure of the Tsar or the Tsarina, you would be exiled to Siberia. So even in the midst of this miserable winter, the Russian Empire still has its grip over it.
Wow.
That's why, again, when I was asking you what the details were, you said that there was a double-headed eagle.
Hmm.
Well, I said that could be part of the Romanov, but the eagle itself is very much the preferred symbol for power for ancient Rome.
Oh,
Eh,
wow. It
yeah,
goes back to
so
Rome again.
yeah, so that's why the Tsars knew the power of history and the power of storytelling. That's why we are in power because we are now the heirs of ancient Rome, one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world, and we will continue the good work of ancient Rome and now in Imperial Russia.
That's amazing. That truly is amazing, Chong. And what do you think happened? Was it the transition from the Tsar? Because the Romanovs were. I remember the
The
story
last.
where they're taking a picture, and then after that, they were all murdered. Was it?
Yeah, so the Bolsheviks, well, the Romanovs had to be had to be executed for them to solidify the power of what eventually became the Soviet Republic of Russia.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's interesting that before they were executed, one of the last acts was for them to be photographed. And even in their photograph that they were like dressed simply, they really looked imperious as well. So it's all about the posture, I guess. And when they were executed, the Romanovs, they were cited as martyrs of their church because there
Wow.
was there was a great schism between the Catholic Church and their church. So yeah, so there are saints in their church over there, but not
Interesting.
Ivan.
But not Ivan. Really?
Of course, I'm not sure, but again, if you have the name Ivan the Terrible, you don't want that to be a saint in your church. So
That's true. That's
yeah.
true. I don't know if you can pull up the picture I sent you of the album, Chong. Let's go back to that. So
Mhm.
there's a double-headed eagle, and
Yes.
there are some, well, leaves. Is that what you're referring to as,
Yes, the
you know,
filigrees.
the filigrees? Uh,
Yes.
wow, that's
So
amazing.
there's like a coat of arms for the
Mm-hmm.
chest, the spread of the wings. That's a very Roman, imperial, ancient Roman symbol of power,
Ah,
which was then co-opted or appropriated by Imperial Russia.
wow. Wow, wow, wow. This is so interesting, and um it it makes you think, it makes you think that the artists that made this album really also did a lot of research. Therefore, they'll get all the kingmakers to think about what's going on, make their own theories, find out if Ivan truly is going to be, if there will be someone who will be the bad guy in this whole story, if it will actually indeed be Ivan, the member of the idol group in this mythical world that they're making.
Yeah. But it's interesting that you said that the fans are called kingmakers.
Yes.
The kingmaker has an interesting point in history in which they usually work behind the scenes, but they are
Wait,
the
wait,
ones
wait.
who buffer.
There is such a
Sorry.
thing as kingmaker. It's just, this is not like a word that's made up because, they're fans of kingdom. Oh, it sounds good. It's kingmakers. There are kingmakers in history.
There are kingmakers, yes. Some of them would be like minor royals. Some of them would be the
Okay.
mothers of the prince,
Ah,
of the prince, the princess, or the
yes, yes, yes,
princesses.
yes, yes.
So these people are very politically astute. They
Mm-hmm.
knew how to move people into,
Wow.
uh, entrenching their choice to become king. And that's why, and all these kingmakers, what they have in their arsenal of power would be stories. They would say to other people, why should we get this person as our king? He's a perfect candidate. You remember, blah, blah, blah. So it's all of these, the kingmakers weave stories, mythologies to produce a king. And that's just one part of becoming a king.
Well, why don't you share with us the other parts of becoming a king?
Right. I mean, of course, the other parts would be political machinations,
Mm,
um, financial support, and also the support of the military,
hmm.
and also the respect and the love of people. Especially the last one, the kingmaker would have to be very astute in connecting different kinds of people. And sometimes the kingmaker is the king himself, or the queen, or the empress herself. Catherine the Great, the one of the Russian tsarinas, was very smart in a way that she used her charm and intellect to rally the troops to her, under her. And although people assume that she's a Russian empress, she is, but she was not Russian. She was German.
Wow.
So when she became when she was betrothed to the would-be heir of Russia, what she did was to learn the language, to convert to their religion.
Wow.
So that makes her closer to the people. So to be a kingmaker is to be a really great person in terms of political movements.
And very appropriate, Chong, because the Kingmakers right now are working to get Kingdom to be noticed by everyone and to get more fans to appreciate their music. Because, like you said, the production value is amazing, and I think one of the most recent achievements is to get them into the Billboard charts. And they're
Oh,
only a rookie
really?
group. Yes, they're only a rookie group um, that debuted in February of this year, but to get them into the Billboard charts is something. So yeah, congratulations to the
So,
Kingmakers. They
but
are really
June, you
working very
are.
hard.
But you are a kingmaker in the
Am I?
sense. So you are a kingmaker. And for them to land in the Billboard charts, the
Mm-hmm.
most powerful charts, musical charts in the world, that itself is an act of kingmaking.
That's true. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And you know
So
how K.
again, I will never underestimate the fans of K-pop.
That's true. That's true. To get their, their idols to be recognized by everyone, and to get more fans to appreciate their music too. But it's crazy out there, Chong. There are so many idol groups debuting every day, every week, every month. Looking for songs every week to include into our playlist is crazy because there are just so many new songs coming out. So yeah, it's a battle out there. It really is a
Well,
battle out
South
there.
Korea knows what it's doing. No, I mean so much so that even
Yes.
North Korea, felt threatened by it.
Uh-huh.
So they would issue all these. The North Korean leader Kim Jong Un recently made disparaging remarks against K-pop, against the Korean dramas like Squid Game. So for one of the most powerful authoritarians in the planet to comment about K-pop makes me think that K-pop is doing a good job for it to be noticed by one of their greatest enemies, which is North Korea.
That's true. Funny you mentioned that because I think there were also a certain number of acts that were invited to perform in North Korea a few years ago, like 1 or 2 years ago. But
So yeah, so what's happening right now? I know there's a campaign for this. Instead of throwing out your old USBs or thumb drives, you donate it to this NGO, and the
wow,
NGO would or this agency would fill the thumb drives with all these MP3s, music files of K-pop, and
really?
also books. Yeah, books that are banned in North Korea, and then they would just no. This is I'm serious.
Really?
They would just sometimes toss it across the border for people in North Korea to be exposed.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's interesting. That's why, again, I never underestimate the power of K-pop.
That's true. That's true. And that's why we always take time to invite you, Chong, to share your thoughts on what's going on with Kingdom, and widen our knowledge with history, because I love how you make it relevant to history and what's going on, because then you open our eyes to what we sometimes forget, you know.
Like I always say, I try.
Maybe some final words to the Kingmakers, or to any K-pop fan watching this video right now. Anything you'd
Well,
like to say?
yeah, I'd like to say that this is the third album, right? I'm not, although we've discussed the other albums before, well, particularly the Chinese
Yeah, the
Monarch one,
second one, Chi
the
Rules.
second one, but Ivan, if this is about Ivan the Terrible, then the Kingmakers, if they're interested in nation building or kingdom building, they
Aha.
better study Ivan. Because Ivan, what made that person earn the moniker the Terrible? So are you willing to become a bad guy for you to flourish a nation?
That's
So
interesting.
those are just, is that the only way to
Because
make
some
a nation?
Yeah, because some people say, when you're the boss, sometimes you got to be the bad guy.
Yeah. But my question is that the only way?
Ah.
So again, but it's all like politics and affect or emotions. I mean, June, if you're going to be a queen, who would you be? June the Magnificent?
Or June the Terrible.
Why not?
Oh, wow. And it kind of reminds me of how some of the teachers that we remember the most are the fiercest ones, but they gave us the
The
best
terrors.
life lessons, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and elections are fast approaching in the country, Chong. I don't want to be political. We already have been in the past half an
Yeah.
hour, but yeah, choose well. Choose
Yeah.
well, choose well.
As
Vote
kingmakers,
and vote, right?
yeah, vote, register and vote. And as kingmakers, you have the power really. I mean, you do. I mean, in this case, you sent this rookie group all the way to Billboard. My God, how many artists have tried landing a Billboard spot? And
That's
here
true.
you have a group that was formed in February. Before the year ended, they're already in Billboard. So again, all hail K-pop fans.
All hail K-pop fans. Well, you know what? Thank you, Chong, really, for giving us a little bit of your time. I know you're so busy, but we are always so happy to have you with us.
Thanks
You
for
know,
having me.
open
Glad
our
to do it.
minds. Yeah. So once again, thank you to Chong. He's an assistant professor at the University of the Philippines Diliman College of Fine Arts, and he's also a Fulbright Shed Scholar right now in Lubbock, Texas, taking
Yes,
his
ma'am.
doctorate, his PhD.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chong. Until next time, if you got the time, we're going to invite you over here at Hallyu, okay?
Sure.
Stay safe
Always
and
fun.
yes, stay safe and be well, okay?
You too.
Okay, bye
Bye.
bye.